Style is the answer.
Kind of evil and scary that these people have a worldview which is so logically flawed, is so devoid of genuine rationale that they have to go to the most susceptible subsect of the population to inject it.
Which is why you should get married, because the guard against that is strong families.
Is it?
It is a nuclear family. It is a mom and a dad sitting around the dinner table saying, what did you learn at school today? It's mom guarding at home, going through their homework and seeing what they're learning and saying absolutely not. And it's dad going to work, building, and that nuclear family is the only guard against handing over your children to the government, which is why in the next 5 years, I just think you should get married.
The only guard except Islam.
Well, no.
I don't have to worry about my children's homework. Thank you very much. It's all handled by God. And it's interesting you said that, though. It is a good point. And I think Matt Walsh actually said something about me having, I have children from a few different women. I don't like to give details on it. But so does Elon Musk. And I do think, although this may be elitist, I will state here that at a certain level of finance, it's not the same crime as it would be if I was a traditionally financed individual. I can afford 2 or 3 families, and I can afford to see them all, and I can afford to go to 3 countries in a single day on my jet if I need to. And I'm a very good father to all my children. I love them very much. And you're right. I completely agree with you. The nuclear family is the answer. My solution is not the solution for everyone, but the nuclear family is the answer. I agree with you. But Islam is also an answer.
Well, I don't know enough about the Islamic faith to be able to counter you on that point, but I do think that having all your children around the dinner table, brother, sister, rivalry,
this is beautiful.
For the rib, it's beautiful.
Of course.
I want that for you.
Of course. It's beautiful as well.
Okay.
But sorry, I'm not, I have to, we talk about Darwinism. I'll ask you another question because I'm very interested. Do you think abortion is Darwinism?
It's an argument that can be made, right? Killing off your own offspring, it means that you're not putting your offspring into
But like these people with the sign,
yeah,
I killed 10 of my kids. Isn't that, I mean, it's evil. It's satanic. It shouldn't happen. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm just asking, is there a Darwinistic element to all of this?
That
when I look
at that the earth will be populated with conservatives because their ideas. I mean, my husband always says the left is a death cult. If you look at all of their ideas, they lead to death, right? You can't procreate. You're killing off your own offspring. Every single one of their ideas leads to death and destruction. It's unbelievable. Yep. So in the end, you'd have to have the perspective that conservatives win naturally because we're talking about
if we own the culture.
Yeah.
But we don't. So what they're doing is they're using the culture to psyop enough young children who are not living a traditionalistic life, or like you're saying, or not having a strong family, nuclear family to keep them against the slave programming. And they're using them to create the new generation of death cultists to continue to keep humanity under attack. But I don't know. I really struggle. As a person, I try my very best to, my father had a saying, which I use, I allow manipulation to find out where my enemy wants me to go, and then I use my mind to break the trap and punish the perpetrator. And the reason he said that was because if you don't allow them to manipulate you, you don't know exactly where they want you to go. If they try to manipulate you and you absolutely not resist, you might end up taking another path towards the same destination. So you should allow them to manipulate you. Watch the slave programming, watch the propaganda, watch all of it, find out what you want, then what they want you to believe, and then you can use your mind to instantly break the trap. I did it in COVID. And when I first watched COVID, when I watched the Italian hospitals and people falling over in China, at the very, very beginning of it, I sat there and thought, what do they want me to believe? They want me to be scared of this disease. They want me to be afraid. No, I'm not going to be afraid. So if I'm not afraid, what's the answer? Well, the answer is to go to which country? Sweden's open. Nobody talks about the fact that Sweden was open the whole time, never closed ever. I mean, interesting, we're in nightclubs the entire time people were locked in their houses. Nobody talks about this. It's like no one mentions it anymore. But you have to use your mind to break the trap. And I feel like I've tried to allow my mind to be psyoped into this transgender stuff or this abortion stuff. And even I can't even pretend to buy into it. I can't see how you can reach that level of delusion. And that's where I say, maybe it must be Darwinism, because maybe even with all of my mental capacity, I can't even pretend to be stupid enough to want to go and chop my genitalia off to then imitate a woman, poorly imitate a woman for the rest of my human years. That literally sounds like a form of torture. That sounds like one of the worst existences ever. I feel sorry for anyone who's fallen for that because they're never going to be what they want to be ever. It's just like the worst possible existence. I just can't think of anything possibly worse. And I don't know, maybe there's a Darwinistic element to all of these things. If we can just control the culture and make sure that no future children are psyoped into the death cult, maybe it should all fall apart because people who truly are that susceptible. Me and my brother have a joke in the house. There's flies and mosquitoes in the house sometimes. Every time one of us kills a fly, we say, you've improved the gene pool. because the slow one got killed. The fast one, he doesn't get killed. So the fast one's going to be here forever.
I'm gonna think about that every time I kill a fly.
Every time you kill a fly, you're helping them get quicker. If we didn't kill flies all these millions of years, they would never be so elusive. I don't know. Maybe there's a Darwinistic element. Maybe I'm just trying to feel better about this.
Yeah, maybe they're so evil they've decided we're gonna kill off all of the people that are stupid.
I don't know.
And then we'll be left with just strong, independent. But then they can't control the strong, independent people. So then you got a bit of a problem there.
I've got another question for you. How polarized do you think the world is? Do you think there's 2 teams? Do you think the globalists control everything? Do you think there's 3 or 4 teams? What do you think about that?
I think it's probably now divided into 2 teams. Yeah. Because now you have to find more in common. It's like, how crazy are you? We may have been divided into 4, 5, 6, but now it's like, do you believe that children should chop their off, right? Or yes or no. Circle yes or no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where we're at, because you have to be so far deluded to believe this. And if you're just in some realm of sanity, we probably have enough in common that we should fight together, right? Just because like they're going after the kids now. It's like, and I think that is really where we got divided into 2 categories, where it's like you're either pro going after the children or you're against going after the children. And it's remarkable how many people are pro letting them go after the children. It's kind of scary, but that's where we're at. I think it's now pretty much 2 camps. It used to be more.
I think so also.
And then within you, obviously, there's little battles, and to me, they're meaningless.
Yep.
I think maybe I'm saying that because I'm a mom, and now so there's nothing more important to me than protecting children and worrying about what my children are going to face. I'm going to be the crazy mom when my kids are at school. I will be there every single day, looking over every assignment.
Amazing.
Leaning fully into the feminine role
Amazing.
of like, yeah. So I do think now it's come down to 2 camps. It's crazy and not crazy.
I wonder what the future of the world is, Candace. I feel like I know everything and I talk like I know everything, but I'm actually starting to think things are getting
Your dad might have had an idea.
Yeah, I wish he was still around, but things are starting to get very, very strange. And yeah, and I guess also when we're talking about my libertarianism versus conservatism, I would never allow my child to be aborted ever. I do think it's heinous and disgusting, but I will be honest with you. When I see people trying that hard to kill their kids, I'm kind of like, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe that's the libertarianism in me. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm just like, there's got to be a Darwinistic element to some of these things. I don't think they should happen. I would love to stop them all. I believe that all life is precious. I think it's heinous. I don't think that anyone should chop off any of their body parts either. But it does get to a point where it's just like, if you're that desperate to damage your own life and damage yourself, am I the person who's going to fight for you? I don't know.
Well, these women are broken and they're brainwashed. And I like to think that if they hear the right message, something in the same way that I think a lot of broken men heard you say something and it woke something up inside of them.
Very true.
I think that they can land on my message and they can hear it and go, wait a second, that thing that was killed inside of me systematically from the school system and made me think that what it meant to be a woman was to be a whore, because that's kind of the message that's going out right now.
100%.
To be a whore and hate children, which is the opposite of what it means to be a woman.
Agreed.
Then when they hear something and I talk about how aspirational family is and something is, or how much I love being a mother, and then I think inside of them, something spiritual happens where they go, wait a second, I think that's actually what I am.
Yep.
I've been conditioned to believe I'm this, but actually this is what I am. So I'm more hopeful that the more that we have better pillars in society, that we have people speaking out on the opposite messaging that Hollywood is bringing, on the glory of being a woman, on the beautiful of the yin and the yang, on that submission in a marriage is not a bad thing, actually. It's a beautiful thing.
I agree.
And these messages have been perverted, that we make a difference. And I think we know we're winning.
No, we are
now
winning.
they want censorship. Now they want the people taken off the internet. Now they want this person to go down. And that they weren't doing that when they were winning. They didn't care. Everybody was allowed to have a platform when Obama was president.
Completely true. We are winning. And I just think it's an unfortunate of the human condition that people don't really like to learn lessons the easy way. They have to learn them the very hard way. And it's very difficult for us to sometimes sit and tell people the truth, and they just don't want to learn it until it's too late. I like to think that these women who hold up these I lost 10 babies, I killed 10 babies signs will one day wake up and feel very sad about what they've done. And they will definitely.
And it's possible.
Right? And it's possible. And I think even time will show them, God will show them with time. I don't know how I'd talk someone out of the transgender argument. Like, how would you convince someone who is 100% certain they want to mutilate their body to not mutilate their body. That's a scary one to me because their mind.
And that's also one that you can't really undo, which I think is sad, which is why the suicide rates go up after transitioning, I think, is once you do it, you've committed. But I've sat down with a man that did that, had the full surgery. His name is Walt Heyer, and he's dedicated the rest of his life to waking up other.
That's the most noble thing you can do.
Yeah. He's like, this is what I did. This is how I was convinced. This is how I was brainwashed. This is what happened to me. I was actually just molested when I was a kid, and I just wanted to get rid of my identity in any capacity. So I did the most extreme thing that I could possibly do. I platform those individuals, and I think that he runs a not-for-profit now, which, Sex Change Regret. There's many people that are like him out there. And yeah, it's going to take God, it's going to take spiritualism, and it's going to take repurposing your entire life after you do something that extreme. Hopefully, just us having this conversation prevents people from making those sorts of very serious decisions. And, but this is why YouTube will try to censor this conversation. Right? I mean, that's the whole point. Is
my face is on it, you're in trouble. So I'm going to ask you a few more questions if you don't mind.
My face is trouble too, I would just like to state.
Yeah, of course it is. Why do you think marriage has reduced in the Western world? Why do you think less people are getting married than before?
Conditioning. It's all about social conditioning, and it's about the feminist messaging. Going back to our conversation about the matriarchy, they've totally conditioned women to believe that marriage is a trap, that you are going to be unhappy, that you are going to be sacrificing your freedom, when in reality, I got more freedom than I ever had when I became married, because I finally became a secure woman. I knew what my purpose in life was when I had children. Everything else is so stupid and meaningless. How could you think you were going to find your purpose at the bottom of a Red Bull vodka at One Oak, Candace? You know what I mean? How could you think that? Well, because that's what Hollywood told me. That's what I saw on MTV. And I thought that was all aspirational. I look at those women, I think they're miserable. I look at these women that are still finding their freedom. I say, find the number one feminist that and ask yourself a question. Do you think she's happy?
Completely.
Chasing her career. Do you think Chelsea Handler's happy?
Never.
Right? And the answer is no. And so I'm lucky that I got that wake-up call. I'm blessed that I got married. I'm blessed that I have, 3 children now with this one on the way. And the more that I can talk about how happy and fulfilled I am for the first time in my life, right? Not when I was drinking and pretending to be happy, but for the first time I actually am happy. And I got those things by finally realizing that the message that those things were going to constrain me was utterly false and was meant to put me down a path of misery.
Why do you think men are not getting married? That's women. Do you think men have something to do with it as well?
Same thing. I think, well, first and foremost, I think, and I speak out on this, women are not desirable right now. Everyone's a Kim Kardashian clone. I asked you earlier, what don't men want? And you said promiscuity. Well, that seems about the only thing that's being offered right now. When I open my Instagram and I've got butt cheeks and I'm going, people are like, I don't understand why no one wants to, this woman's been married 4 times. I'm like, well, I can understand it, because even if men think they want it in the short term, when you see a girl, she's half naked, she looks good. Yeah, sure. You probably do want to have sex with her. I bet you're wired that way. You're hardwired that way. But then what happens after you have sex with her and you realize that so did 20 other dudes
100%.
In the same week, you don't want her.
You nailed it. You absolutely not only nailed it. And this is where we're in such a difficult, it's a race to the bottom between the two genders, right? Yeah. As the women act worse, the men act worse by extension. Yeah. Because if you're going to be moral in an immoral world, you're going to end up wrecked. Right. So it's getting harder and harder. So we have to kind of fix one of the genders first.
Women aren't desirable right now, as in the Western Hemisphere as a whole. And of course,
finding a wife is hard.
Finding a wife is hard. And it's because women are literally being conditioned to behave like sluts.
Completely. And they're also being conditioned to leave the man as soon as things get difficult. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of programming in this I don't think even many people pick up on, but women are conditioned to act a certain way before marriage, but also during marriage, men and women are conditioned differently. If you have a man who's been married for 10 or 15 years, and let's say he doesn't sleep with his woman anymore, and he goes on TV and says, me and my woman have been married for 15 years, we no longer have sex, I'm not satisfied, I should leave. Everyone will say to him, no, you can't leave. You can't leave her just because she won't have sex with you. Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? Stick by your woman. She has an emotional problem, etc. If you had a woman who said, I've been married for 15 years, I've been with him, I'm not attracted anymore, I don't have sex with him anymore. You deserve freedom. You can go get someone else. Why are you putting up with this? His feelings aren't your responsibility. So it's actually very interesting. Also, the psyop happens post-marriage. Women are also attacked post-marriage to not try, not stick around, not worry about their husband's needs.
Speaking to your point, one thing I speak to the young women that follow me about is making an effort after you get married. This idea, I was reading this ridiculous column, Ask Jane, where a guy was writing in earnest saying, I love my wife. She's a wonderful mother to our children. We've been married. She had 1 child. 2 years later, she gained 50 pounds and hasn't lost it. Yeah. And Jane wrote back to him and yelled at him for saying, he's like, I'm not attracted to her anymore. I don't want to. Just yelled at him for even saying this. And I'm going, no, why are you yelling at him for being honest? The idea that marriage is a finish line is problematic. That, oh, well, I got the guy, I pretended that I like to work out and go to the gym, and now that I've got him, I'm going to gain 200 pounds and he's just stuck with me. That is a poisonous mentality. You should make an effort for your husband. That's part of marriage, is caring about each other, caring about each other's health. Health is wealth. So even that is toxicity, to say to a woman, to say to a man, well, you just have to like her anyways if she's 300 pounds and doesn't care anymore and sits on the couch all day. That's not what marriage is really about.
Completely agree. And I think everything in life is rented. I don't think anything is ever owned. I think that your health is rented and you have to pay the rent every day. And your marriage is rented and you have to work on your marriage every day. And your business is rented and everything you have is rented. I think the idea that even owning anything or anything as a finish line is wrong. You don't just start a company and go, okay, I'm rich now. No, you got to work on that company every day. It's rented. You don't just get in shape and go, I'm in shape now, it's done. No, absolutely everything's the same, and a relationship is exactly the same. And I completely agree with you. I think that the breakdown of the nuclear family and the breakdown of marriage in the West is actually one of the ills and one of the big problems with it. I am not married myself, so I'm not being completely, I don't want to come across as hypocritical, but I do think that is actually a fast way to a degree to solve a lot of problems in society. I do think, though, in the current setup of society, I think the reason a lot of men are also rejecting marriage is, one, because there's not many wives to find, but two, I think a lot of men find themselves very unhappy in marriage because the women have no interest at all in satisfying them, like you said, or no interest at all in their needs. And they end up scared of divorcing her because they're going to be bankrupt in a marriage where they don't feel respected. Kids don't listen to them, and they're not the king of their own household. So what would be the attraction in getting married unless you're going to be the king of your own household? And that can be extrapolated and discussed in two different ways. One about feminine submissiveness, but also about masculine accountability and excellence. Because I think if you're truly an excellent man, you can be the king of any household. So it's very interesting. It's kind of interesting how all arguments come back to almost the same base biological things. And you teach women to be good women, you teach men to be good men, and everything kind of works out after that. And if you break those two things, everything built on top of it completely degrades and breaks down. Because even all the other things we discussed how masculinity would have prevented a lot of the COVID crisis. We can talk about how genuine masculinity or a good nuclear family and anti-propagandist dinner table can prevent a lot of this transgender insanity. There's so many things can be fixed with a man being a man and a woman being a woman. It's like the ultimate pure.
Is what I always say, and it's so natural defining the roles in the household. So like me, my husband had to sit down, and it just was. I had a natural proclivity to do certain things. I always give the greatest example. When a baby is born, the men don't know what to do for the first. You just need your girls. You know, they just are. What do I do? And I remember, like, thinking about every diaper size, transitioning, what clothes he needed, what onesies, all of the stuff. George, not there. I think Georgie must have been, that's my son's name, Georgie, must have been 2 months old. And I said something I don't even know what I said to George, but I had realized that George had already opened his college account, things that when I tell you, my brain I was just like, where are you? I'm sitting here thinking about the day to day. He's thinking about his future.
100%.
I don't even know when I would have. I think still to this day, George is now 2.5. I still would not have opened an account for him. It just is not where my brain was.
100%.
And so I love telling that story because it just speaks to how different. I'm like, did you try to feed him? He's like, I don't know why he's crying. I'm like, have you tried giving him food? And then he's like, oh, I've already sorted out his bank account. So when he turns 18, I'm like, where are you? Men and women are different, and it's beautiful. Those differences are beautiful. Completely. The sex differences are a beautiful thing. Our instincts are beautiful, and we need to stop shunning them in this society. I love being a woman. I love that my husband's a man. We shouldn't be making someone feel badly about being a woman. We shouldn't make someone feel badly about being a man.
Well, absolutely. And if I had to be pessimistic about why they're doing it, pessimistic and also very realistic, they want to cause absolute chaos and confusion, because during chaos and confusion, you can implement anything.
Of course, slavery.
It's slavery, right? People will give up their freedom for only one thing, and that's safety. So they have to inject chaos and they have to inject confusion, and they want us confused at every level. At every base level, they want you confused. They want you confused about why your kid doesn't listen to you, why your marriage doesn't work, why you're broke, why they want you confused from the ground all the way up. So you're just confused. So when they come along with some sort of solution, no matter what garbage it is, you end up just adopting it because you're sick and you need a medicine. So absolutely, they attack masculinity and femininity because it works so perfectly together. And if they can break that, they can break all of society by extension. And I think they've done a pretty good job of doing exactly that. And it's amazing if you look at these ideas we discuss and how ridiculous they are, and how I feel like it's a psyop to even convince me to waste my time convincing people that a man is not a woman. It's done on purpose because they have the world so confused now that they can come at us with absolute garbage and it needs a discussion. If we had the basis of masculinity and femininity in the household, how much harder would the transgender argument be to implement? Think about it. Well, she's a woman, I'm a man. No. But now they got people thinking we're all the same. It doesn't matter. Gender is not real. All this craziness because of the breakdown of the basics. So this is why perhaps they see you as such a threat and they see me as such a threat and they see us as such a threat because we've just stuck to the age-old adages and the age-old ways that people have always been. And I do think that one of the reasons why they dislike me so much is because, yeah, I certainly live a teenage boy's dream. But if you want to inspire the next generation, how else are you going to do it, right? You have to have the fancy car and the big yacht and all these things. And by inspiring these men to stand up and think for themselves and resist the slave mind, it's doing genuine damage to their slave agenda. Genuine damage to their slave agenda. And I think that that's why I especially ended up targeted. I truly believe that's what's happening.
I think there is an element of it that it's you've captivated young men, and that is a very important demographic in order to sustain an enslaved population. Is you need to poison men, and I think
100%.
that is true. So, in closing, other than the fact that we've agreed that you're going to get married in the next 5 years,
Sure. I get 4 wives. No problem.
no, not 4 wives, just one monogamous relationship.
Okay.
What does Andrew Tate's life look like in the next 5 years? You've built your audience. You did it with your own grit and determination. There are people following you. I hope that if there's anything I leave you with, it's that in those moments when you are sitting across with someone like Adam 22, you remember that there's the 12-year-old and the 13-year-old boy that is going to be watching you. And I think you did a good job, by the way. I think you said that you didn't like it, and that was
Thank you.
important enough. But what does the next 5 years look like for you?
Yeah, I want to do my absolute best. I had someone say to me the other day that I'm the richest man in the world, and not because of my finances, but because I actually have people whose lives I save and help. And I get a lot of people out there who genuinely feel a lot better because of me. And I try my very best to tell the truth and live true to my heart. And I live with my brother, and I've got a lovely family, and I feel like I've got everything almost ticked off. And my plans for the future are primarily to continue to tell the truth. I think that we're now winning. I think there's been a pendulum that swung, and people are tired of insanity and they're tired of being lied to. I like the idea of young boys who follow me just doing even one of the tenets I teach. If you want to just work hard in the gym and become a fantastic physical condition, or if you want to get financially secure, just one of the tenets I teach can genuinely improve people's lives. I like the idea of that. And I want to have 10 sons. And I need to make sure that all 10 are Andrew Tate 4, 5, 6, I'm the third, 7, 8, 9, all the way up. And I have to make sure that the next generation are being produced, and they have to be strong enough to deal with a Romanian jail cell and deal with a matrix attack. So it's going to be a very difficult upbringing. And I'm going to make sure that I'm very dedicated and focused on creating the next generation of super soldiers to resist enslavement. So my plans for the future are pretty simple. I'm going to continue to tell the truth. I'm going to live true to myself, true to God. I really appreciate the audience he's given me, and I know that I have a massive responsibility. It makes me a better person. I'm going to be the best person I know how to be, and I'm going to have 10 Andrew Tates. That's my goal. That's the plan.
Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. If you thought one Andrew Tate was bad, you've got 10 more coming at you in the near future. Andrew, thank you so much for taking all of this time.
You.
Such a good conversation.
Thank you.